Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Lucha Rewatch Season 3. We are on episode 5 of Lucha Rewatch Season 3, and we are covering episodes 9 and 10 of Lucha Underground Season 3. John, we just got done watching these episodes not too long ago. How do you feel about them?
Oh, great batch of episodes, partner. I mean, each episode to me had a worthwhile main event. Episode 9 having the loser leaves Lucha match between Chavo Guerrero Jr. and Rey Mysterio. And episode 10, of course, having grave consequences, Mil Muertes versus Prince Puma. You also had a feud that concluded, Masquerita and Famous B on episode 10, which actually had build in episode 9. See, I feel like these were two very productive episodes, and I quite enjoyed them, and I'm ready to get right into them whenever you are.
All right, well, let's make no further ado. Up next, let's just get into episode 9. And the first thing, obviously, all these episodes start with a recap. I think I'm going to just stop even mentioning that because you guys know they start with a recap. It's Lucha Underground. That's kind of a trope that they've kind of grown accustomed to, and I love about them. But the first real bit of kind of new content that we get is Dario's Dial of Doom. And he also makes it clear that in 2 weeks, meaning in episode 11, which we will be covering next week, Matanza will be defending his championship in Aztec Warfare, entering number 1, as we've established. And then he ends up, he goes ahead, he spins the Dial of Doom, and what does it land on, John?
Dario's choice, and Dario, quite happy about this, says, I get to choose who should I pick. I can't pick Rey Mysterio. I think he mentioned Prince Puma, that also was off the table. But you know what? I see this guy coming to the temple, work so hard, last to leave, great work ethic, and he's waiting for his shot. Well, buddy, tonight is your night because Cortez Castro is my choice. Now, for those of you that have been keeping up with this series or just Lucha Underground in general, you know that the week prior, Cortez Castro got his arm broken by Pentagon. So Dario's been screwing with him ever since Joey Ryan divulged to Dario that Cortez is an undercover cop. So he comes out in this one cast. It's Cortez Castro versus Matanza to get right into our first match. And it's not really much of a match, but I still very much enjoyed it. I love that Matanza, being vicious, rebroke the arm of Cortez, and this is why I love that you can do the editing in post-production, because the sound effects and stuff you can do with stuff like this I thought was great, and you could see like the blood coming out of the cast and everything. It was a sick visual. But Cortez really had like that scrappy babyface aspect to him because he's still fighting back with one arm, and at one point he even like beats Matanza over the head with his casting mold. And that really doesn't do it, though. Ultimately, he gets caught, hit with Wrath of the Gods, and that's the 3 count for Matanza to retain in a fairly quick but fun match nonetheless, I would say. And then after the match, Dario says, I hope you get plenty of rest and you can try again. Get that rest under the covers, rat. So, yeah, it's just Dario saying, once again, that he knows what Cortez is, and commentary still aloof to it, because Matt Striker openly said, I don't know what that was about, but we do, given the insight with the cinematics. So, yeah, Dario has pretty much outed Castro. Castro should know now, and he got viciously beat up by Matanza. Do you have anything you want to add to this?
Not really. The only thing I do want to kind of correct you on, and I know that this wasn't like you, intentionally just saying something incorrect. The Pentagon breaking Cortez's arm thing happened in episode 4, so this wasn't last week. It was about a month ago.
Oh wow, yeah, I thought it was much sooner than that because I feel like it was a trend that once Dario knew, he really started sticking to Castro. But that was my mistake. I apologize. Other than that, though, is there anything you want to add?
No, sir. Let's get into our next segment, which was just amazing because it was Cueto and Joey Ryan laughing their asses off about what just happened to Cortez Castro. And just kind of making a mockery and a joke of it. And just Cueto's laugh here was hysterical to me. I loved it.
Yeah, I love hearing him laugh. It's the same way when we heard him laugh when Worldwide Underground recounted how they broke Angelico's leg.
Honestly, now that I think about it a little bit, Cueto's laugh in this segment kind of reminded me of Frieza's laugh in Dragon Ball Super Sub.
Yeah, a little bit.
It's like that, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. I mean, and when this first aired, I was laughing with them because Schadenfreude, I get off on that shit, so it was really great. And Joey Ryan, he was pulling such a me because he was even mocking Cortez at the program. Oh, my arm! Oh god, it was great. It was absolutely wonderful. But then they get interrupted by Son of Havoc and Masquerita Sagrada, and essentially to get down to brass tacks, Masquerita wants a match with Famous B. And so Dario says, you know what? You want that match, fine, but I'm going to make it interesting because Dario never, does anything half-assed, which he himself would say later as a joke about Masquerita's height. Son of Havoc, you're going to face Dr. Widener Jr. tonight. If you beat Dr. Widener Jr., then Masquerita gets to pick the match that he and Famous B have next week. But if Dr. Widener Jr. wins, Masquerita, you still get your match, but Famous B is going to pick what kind of match you have. And they agree to these terms, and that's essentially the cinematic. So we're going to get Son of Havoc versus Dr. Widener Jr. I believe that was actually after this cinematic, if I'm not mistaken. Actually, no, there was still like something else in between. But yeah, we know that we're going to get that match tonight. What do you think about this cinematic?
Yeah, this was great. I gotta think back because I do remember this match, but I gotta think back and like try and remember, or not remember, but try and think about like I wonder if Wagner Jr. had beaten Son of Havoc because we all know that Son of Havoc won and that we got the Believers Backlash, but I wonder if Wagner would have won, what stipulation Famous B would have chosen for his match with Mascarita. Like,
yeah, that is a good point. I'd be curious to know that as well.
yeah, I don't know.
Probably like maybe a handicap match or something, or
yeah,
something.
yeah, or like a steel cage match just to like prevent Son of Havoc from being able to help him or something like that. Yeah, something cheeky.
Yeah, or maybe like if it had to be him and Masquerita 1-on-1, then maybe with Dr. Widener Jr. a special guest referee or something. So yeah. But yeah, after this, we actually get Prince Puma on the mic. He's gonna cut a promo. This is very rare that we hear him speak. And essentially, he said, I still haven't forgiven Mill for putting Conan in the casket, sending him, to the afterlife, more or less. And Puma wants to square away that debt. So how does he want to do it? With grave consequences. And then Mill comes out looking once again baller in a suit. Quick side note for everybody. Every time I see Mill in a suit, and it's crazy because he still wears the mask and everything, I'm like, man, Ric Flair wishes he had that sense of style. Like, I think he always looks baller in a freaking suit. It's amazing. You shouldn't be able to pull it off as well as he does, and yet, damn. So yeah, they kind of have a stare down, building up their matchup. And yeah, it was just a very straightforward segment. Puma laying down the challenge, Mil Muertes answering it. And then we know next week, which we're going to be covering here in a few moments, that it amounts to grave consequences. So do you have anything you want to say about this?
I don't think so, no. The only real thing that I have in my notes about this is about how, Puma brings up Conan and what Mill did to Conan and how he wants to do to Mill what Mill did to Conan. And that's about it. Yeah, and then Mill does end up attacking and all that stuff. So yeah, it's Puma on the mic is never going to be something that can really hook me in. He's
right.
He'll get me when he's in the ring, but when he's on the mic, I feel so disconnected. It's not even funny.
Yeah, and that's understandable. That's absolutely understandable. So with that, we go to Son of Havoc versus Dr. Wagner Jr. I actually liked how these two worked together.
Whoa. You're just going to skip over Famous B cutting Melissa off and doing an amazing job of attacking the crowd and then announcing Dr. Wagner to the ring?
Oh, well, I mean, he always does an amazing job at that. I've just gotten so used to it. I guess I didn't even think it was worth mentioning because that's always.
I mean, I just feel like he was especially visceral tonight. He specifically told the crowd that they were destined for mediocrity. I loved that.
That's so true, too. I really appreciated his honesty there.
I know, right? That's what I'm saying, man.
Yeah, he's so good in this role. That's why, like, I've just gotten used to it because, like, him as this manager, kind of gimmick sort of thing has just worked out so well for him. And yeah, it's been great. So yeah, after he totally raises the crowd's confidence to the ground, just torches it.
Then raises as in R-A-Z-E.
That's correct. We do get Son of Havoc versus Dr. Wagner Jr. And yeah, like I was saying earlier, I really like how these two work together. Son of Havoc he gets his the crowd so into his work, and he's such a great babyface. I have said this time and time again on countless Lucha Underground TWitWoW reviews. I do think he's destined for that Lucha Underground championship one of these days, or one of these seasons, I guess I should say. And, you know, when that happens, it's going to be just one hell of a run, I think. And, yeah, Dr. Wagner, man, for his age and stuff like that, still does some great stuff. I mean, that middle rope ace crusher that he did, I thought was really sick looking. So, yeah, you got some worthwhile stuff in this match, but ultimately, Son of Havoc does win with the shooting star press. And then, as you already kind of alluded to earlier in the episode, after the win, he kind of consorts with Masquerita, who, you know, can't even really speak because, like, his mask has no mouth hole. But then Son of Havoc's like, oh, it'll be a Believers Backlash match, but this time the Believers get to bring their own weapons. So it's not just straps, it's anything they can get a hold of and bring to the temple. Famous B, of course, is rightfully mortified, like, oh, God, what have I stepped in? And, yeah, that's pretty much this match and the whole post-match segment there. Do you have anything you want to say about this?
No, sir. Let's get on right ahead to our next segment, which was just a Rabbit Tribe vignette. But then after that, we got our main event of the night. Ray versus Chavo, Junior versus Junior, Legend versus Legend, I guess.
Yeah.
Loser leaves the temple.
Yeah, not a bad match. I mean, when you have the kind of friendship and stuff that these two guys do, you're at best just going to put on a good match, even if it's nothing like, oh my God, did you see that? Like, I thought this was a genuinely entertaining outing from the two. You know, Ray did some great aerial bits, like a Hurricane Rana, you know, on the outside that sent Chavo into his dad. Then you got the moonsault from Ray on the inside, but Chavo kicked out. You got some great technical work from Chavo. But ultimately, the first big turning point of the match comes when his dad comes in and clocks Chavo with a steel chair. And at first, everybody's confused, but then the light bulb goes off. Oh, you know, if Chavo gets knocked out, that means Ray's disqualified, which means he loses, which means he leaves the temple while Chavo gets to stay. So they're thinking they're all clever. But then Dario comes out and he more or less says, you know, Marty, you're really just ringing the bell. You call for a disqualification in my temple, in my main event? Don't you remember how much Dario Cueto loves violence? And essentially this amounts to Dario.
And dude, I loved Marty Elias's reaction to that too, because he was like, no, I didn't forget.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, so that was a great interplay between the two. So then Dario restarts the match. And what I like about this, I feel like in other places, once you restart the match, like just a few seconds later, because the heel's so shocked, they'll get caught. These guys actually did wrestle for a few more minutes to kind of continue building that drama. And Chavo got two great spots here. One with the single leg Boston Crab, because he had been working over the leg. And if you remember, when he initially attacked Ray to set all this in motion, it was with chair shots to the leg, to the knee, which is well documented. Ray's always had health issues with. So I thought that was a nice touch. And then Chavo actually hit a gory bomb at one point, which looked gorgeous. So that was really nicely done. But
yeah, and it was also a tribute to, I want to say, his uncle or great uncle, Gory Guerrero.
Yeah, I think it would be great uncle. And yeah, like, so that was great stuff by Chavo. Ray at one point tries to get a 619, but he ends up hitting Chavo Sr. But then later in the match, like, he gets to try again, and he does the whole like springboard kind of frog splash for the win. So after a bit of back and forth, even after the restart, Ray emerges victorious. Ray stays in the temple. Chavo has to leave. And yeah, that's essentially how episode 9 goes out. So is there anything you want to add about this?
We've got someone in chat saying Gory is Chavo's grandfather, so I guess it would be Chavo Classic's dad.
Okay.
Yeah, but so there you go. Yeah. Do I have anything to add to this? No, not really. Honestly, I really rarely have anything to say about any matches unless I just feel like they were over the top exceptional and I just want to point out certain spots that pop me. And this match didn't really have anything like that. So if you want, we can already, like 14 minutes into this review, move on to episode 10.
Absolutely. And how do we open this one up, brother?
Well, this was kind of an awkward episode to start because this was, and I actually remember it happening live too, and it was very frustrating. This was the episode where we kind of got like the split screen where like the top half of the screen was showing the top half of the regular sized episode of Lucha Underground, and then the bottom half of the screen was showing like a fully compressed vertically version of Lucha Underground, like what was happening live. So like we saw the same thing in both screens, but in the top half, it was just the top half of the full sized thing. And then in the bottom half, it was all of like a compressed down half version. Like it was weird. And that happened for the first like 2 minutes of this episode. And then I think we briefly got it on the way back from one of the commercial breaks as well. But what we really kind of started with, as far as what we could hear and understand, was just commentary highlighting that tonight we would be getting Grave Consequences and the Mascarita Famous B Believers Backlash match.
Yeah, so pack night tonight. So then after all that, how do we start the show? Like after the weird technical issues and stuff?
With Mascarita versus Famous B Believers Backlash.
This was a lot of fun. Like
lots of fun. Yeah, this was great. I love like the gags, man. This was prop comedy can be entertaining when it's done.
Well, I mean, right though, like I've really learned this season, because it's actually interesting to note that like this and the 5-0 street fight happened in the same season. And I think it really demonstrates that Lucha Underground knows how to do these types of matches. And even though I'd say this was more comedic than the 5-0 in terms of like the overall feud, like the tone of the feud, both were a lot of fun. I think in a way I actually might prefer this more than the 5-0 street fight, but I know the 5-0 street fight was your shit. Like I know you adored that match, and I can't wait for our Lucha Rewatch episode when we cover that match, but that's still a ways away yet. I actually have a recap page open here. Here were some of the spots like in this match. Sagrada in football gear running into Famous B. Sagrada revealing a tiny ladder, placing it on top of the announce table, and jumping off of it with an elbow drop, which that spot was gorgeous. And I love that they can actually, they're actually comfortable showing that Mascarita can work, and he's not just this joke character. And I've said that for a while too. Yeah. The cardboard cutout of Famous B, though that happened a little later. Mascarita being stuffed into a garbage can. Matt Striker giving Sagrada his shoe, which led, to the finish of the match. And yeah, we actually got the Arrogance perfume. That was an interesting spot. Even had Arrogance like emblazoned on it. Famous B getting a bowling ball rolled into his yam bags, because Mascarita did some wizardry with a bag, and he pulled out a bowling ball, and then.
And when you say he did some wizardry with a bag, you're not being like cliche. You're not saying something like a proverb or anything like that. No, he literally put on a wizard's hat and got a wizard's wand and waved it over the bag, and then pulled out a bowling ball.
And then Famous B, another spot in the match, like where he gets caught up and Masquerade's trying to restrain him by the tie. So Brenda takes these giant pair of scissors that Melissa Santos brought to this fight, which makes you wonder, like, what did she envision those scissors being used for? And Brenda cuts Famous B free. So that was just like a snapshot.
And then you can't forget, and then she was like, yay, I got him out of it.
Yeah. And then what does she get for her efforts? A cream pie to the face.
Oh, God. I mean, maybe freezing?
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah, I know James will be all over that later. But yeah, that's just a snapshot of a lot of the hilarity and hijinks that occurred in this match, and that's what makes it just so good. I mean, what a great way to end this feud. Again, I love that they can make Mascarita like a fun character. See, this is how I'll phrase it, and I've been struggling for all these seasons. He's a fun character, but the fun's never at his expense, I don't think. And that's what I love. Like, yeah, they do make the jokes about his height sometimes, but like that's never like in the ring, I don't think. It's just always, you know he can work, and he can go. And I love that Lucha Underground has no qualms about showing that. And Famous B, kudos to him. This is a guy that gets it. One thing that I've really grown to appreciate as I've gotten older as a wrestling fan was William Regal's sentiments that, like, you take on anything you're given. No matter how outlandish it is, the mark of a performer is being able to make it work. And this is a guy that once came out looking like a Vegas showgirl. So Famous B, doing this whole managing gimmick, but then taking a bowling ball to the nards and like all this other stuff, it just shows that, yeah, I'm willing to not take myself seriously. I'm willing to have a good time, and it makes for a great product. I adore this match. It's a lot of fun. Again, Mascarita does get the win and ultimately does win the feud. So, do you have anything else to add about this match?
No, sir. This is a great payoff to this feud, and I just this is going to be like it won't win because I already have another match in mind that probably most likely will win, but this is going to be on that short list for most underrated matches of the year because this is that fun.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So partner, what came after
And
this?
it's funny too because I think the match that's actually going to win that award from me is also another gimmicky Lucha Underground like fun match like this.
Right, right.
Yes, and honestly, we might even not even talk about that match until 2018. So I'll be able to kind of give the award before we talk about the match, and I have to spoil it.
Yeah, that's all right, man. Hey, whatever works. But what came after this match?
After this match, we see Dante Fox in the locker room, confronted by Killshot. Killshot says, "Hey, I heard Dario gave you a job," and Dante was just like, "Yeah, he was impressed with what I did to you."
I love it.
And then Killshot was just like, "Oh, well, whatever, man. I'm just happy to have you home, brother." And he reached for like a handshake hug thing. And it was like a really aggressive, almost hostile hug. And
Yeah.
I don't even remember what Dante said, but he called Killshot brother too.
Yeah, and then
I think he said something about how like they would have to get along to win the match tonight or something like that.
Yeah, because winners go to Aztec Warfare, losers get to stay home and watch it from home. So yeah, big match, big stakes. I enjoyed the cinematic. I've said over and over again, I adore everything about this goddamn feud. It was a freaking masterpiece, and yeah, just great stuff from these guys. So what came after this?
Up next, we had Drago practicing his nunchakus, and then Cobra Moon showed up.
Ooh.
Oh my god. I gotta tell you, just the way that I said that, I felt like I was the narrator for that Two Brothers movie in Rick and Morty's interdimensional cable episode.
Yeah.
And then old ladies showed up. Like anyway, so yeah, we get Cobra Moon talking to Drago about how, oh, I'm your queen and you're gonna rejoin the tribe. And he's like, I was a slave. I wasn't really a part of the tribe. And she's
Drago
like,
was my slave name. So
yeah, and then she's just like, oh, you don't want to end up like Daga, do you? Torn apart by Lord Pindar. And first of all, we know now that Daga is actually not dead. He's alive. And ironically, he ended up being the one to kill Pindar by beheading him in final couple minutes of the finale of the season. So everything she just said to him was a lie. And the really confusing thing is she called him Lord Pindar, which in a way, when we first watched this, definitely made it seem like he was like above her in the chain of command.
yeah. I'm
when we actually got around to it, it was pretty clear that he was an underling. So like I don't really know where they were going with this, if that was planned or if they just had like this vague idea of what they wanted the reptile tribe to look like and they weren't 100% sure until they really executed it. I don't know, man. This was weird.
I'm really glad you mentioned all that though, because like at the time, like putting this episode in a vacuum, not knowing what we would know the remainder of the season, I thought Pindar was the big bad of the reptile tribe. But if I'm being honest, and I'm not even saying this in a bad way, because I love the reptile tribe and I know you do too. But to me, even Vibora was more impressive, and he didn't get nearly the hype, at least in the cinematic, that Pindar did. And I look at Vibora and I'm like,
we didn't know about Vibora until he debuted in the temple.
Exactly. But I feel like
you know what? Maybe that was the point though. Maybe the whole point of it was, oh well, she was trying to set it up like Pindar is the big bad, and then Pindar comes out first, and everyone's like, oh, this is like the big bad, like this is the badass dude that we're supposed to be afraid of. And it's like this letdown, and then Vibora shows up and it's like, holy shit. It was a swerve in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, Drago and Cobra Moon are arguing about that again because, Drago is asserting himself. I was a slave. I'm not going to serve you or Lord Pindar or any of that. Like, I'm done with that. And Cobra Moon is just trying to, again, emphasize, no, you are going to see that I'm your queen and, Pindar's going to make that happen. And then Vinny Massaro comes in and he's like, you know what? I'm just going to use the ladies' room. And then Cobra Moon's face, because it just stays on her face looking like, the fuck? I was busy like making moves, and this guy comes in and interrupts and cuts the tension. So,
I
yeah,
know,
man.
and like he was eating a chicken drumstick, and then as he left, he farted. Like, God, rude.
Yeah, you know what? Vinny Massaro for Gift of the Gods champion 2018. I want to see Vinny get a major push. I freaking love the dude. So, more Vinny Massaro, please. But with that cinematic, what came after this, partner?
We can't ever get enough of Vinny Massaro.
So true. So freaking true.
Up next, we had our second match of the night, and this was a clusterfuck because it was a 10-person tag match, 5-on-5, and both teams were basically your stereotypical unlikely trios in the form of teams of 5. We had Mariposa and Marty teaming up with the Mac, Jeremiah Crane, and Evilise. And then we had Killshot teaming up with Dante Fox, and Tejano teaming up with Cage. And also on that team just happens to be Argenis, which, I mean, okay. I don't really know why he's in this, but okay. And as it turns out, which to the surprise of no one, the team that had Argenis on it lost. So, I mean, weakest link is a real thing.
But Argenis wasn't even the one to eat the pin, man. Like, I feel bad.
I know. But yeah, like the cool thing about this whole thing though was the winning team had every member of that team won a spot in Aztec Warfare, which again, like I mentioned on our last episode of Lucha Rewatch, really does increase the integrity of Aztec Warfare because it really does highlight the exclusivity of the match.
Yeah, that was something we both noted, and like I love it. I love that they continue that here. Really, the only two.
I feel like it was really like you were the first person to point it out, and I just kind of expounded upon it.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is, a good thing because I hope as we get into, season 4, which we know is confirmed and I can't wait to inject my fucking blood with it. I hope they continue that tradition of exclusivity, for season 4's Aztec Warfare.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of my thing though, right? Like, I don't really have any original ideas, but I'll listen to other people's ideas and then make them cooler.
Yeah, you're like that one bit on Family Guy where Einstein just like, he knocks other people out and he's like, oh, I can use this. It's like, oh, Shrinky Dinks, look how tiny they are. I can use this, and then just scurries off. Except you're far less violent and kind about it, so I appreciate it. But yeah,
not violent at all.
Only two things worth noting about this match to me, man. Not that it was a bad match. I actually quite enjoyed it, but the only two things worth noting. This was the match where Evilise got injured again, and it sucks.
Yeah.
You can see the spot where it happened too, because she made a counter, and the way she came down on her knees with the Rana, like you could tell, and she immediately rolled out of the ring. And the most heartbreaking part of the whole thing is you can audibly hear her say, "Not again." Yeah. And she's just on the floor, and like, I know, like, I'm just gonna make this and that, but when real shit happens, and this was real shit, like, my heart just breaks. Nobody likes to see that ever. And yeah, like, Jesus Christ. But also beyond that, of course, Dante Fox and Killshot, they, had little teases throughout the match. Like, Killshot would go for a dive and Dante would be like, no, wait, I go. This is mine. And then, he would do it. And then, of course, the betrayal at the end, hitting the Fox catcher on Killshot. And then I think Marty picked up the winning pin. So, yeah, that team wins because Dante just couldn't keep that hatred in check long enough to go to Aztec Warfare. But again, just another little notch, another little event in a feud that was just utterly fantastic. So, had to happen. It was a necessary evil. Anything you want to say about this match before we move on?
No, sir. Up next, we had our main event. Mil Muertes, Prince Puma, Grave Consequences.
And bro, what can you really say about this? I mean, it was crazy.
Dude, that's exactly how I feel. Like, I don't even really have any notes on this. I just have long match, Mil wins, because what can you say about it, right? Like that. Yeah. You just literally took the words out of my mouth and just spat them out in front of everyone to see.
Yeah, I apologize for that. But yeah, really not much to say, guys. I mean, some great spots here. Like Mills Reaper's Trident. I remember to call it that time. I didn't call it a spirit first. The Reaper's Trident he does to Puma through the table in the corner. Fucking sick. first of all. But then you get Puma. How does he respond? Oh, a little later in the match, a 630 on the freaking casket. But then how does Mill respond to that? A spinning choke slam on the casket as well. Like, this was everything you thought it would be. It's two guys that have that history with each other because Mill not only took Conan away from Puma, but his Lucha Underground Championship in the main event of the first Ultima Lucha. And now Puma's, been responding the best way he can. I mean, these guys have built a legitimate hatred. You see that hatred play out. The two really, and also really cool fucking counter. Puma pretty much doing a handstand counter with the flatliner and then super.
Oh yeah, that was awesome.
That spot will never get old to me. I think that'll always get a pop out of me if you give me enough space in between views. Like I'll always just be like, "Holy shit!" because it got me again. Seeing that.
I think he does that twice this season, doesn't he? I think he does it another time later on in the season after he gets revived.
I believe you may be right about that, and it'll probably still catch me off guard. Like, whoa, so
yeah.
That was great. And,
I love you doing an impression of yourself.
I know, right? It's so good.
Johnception. There's no betterception than Johnception.
Yeah, you know what? That might be the most truthful thing you've ever said. Actually, no, not even truthful, just the most correct thing you've ever said. But yeah, the big moments of the match would be the avalanche choke slam through the tables.
Through the tables, yeah, that was great.
And then didn't Mill follow that up with a flatliner as well, just to make sure that motherfucker stayed down?
Yeah, I think he did, and then he put him in the casket or the coffin. It's funny because I really do have a deep appreciation for branding to some degree. Obviously, I feel like WWE overdoes the branding, like with their incessant need every single time someone comes out to refer to them by their WWE given nickname, like, oh, the goddess is facing the queen at WWE Survivor Series, or like the extraordinary man who does extraordinary things. Like, no, just shut the hell up and call them by the names that they've been given. Like, that's obnoxious, but I do appreciate that Lucha Underground went out of their way not to have casket matches and not to refer to them as caskets, but to refer to them as coffins.
Yeah. And
I just think that's a creative decision that really does help them to stand apart from WWE. Like, look, I know we are a sort of pro wrestling company. Really, it's a TV show about pro wrestling, but I know that we do wrestling, but just because we do wrestling doesn't mean that you should be looking at us through the same scope that you look at WWE through. And I think not only would I say a lot of people, like in general, in the general populace, need to grasp that better, but the most important person really is Dave frickin' Meltzer needs to get a grasp of that shit. Because, like, I know that the shit that he says is ignorant and we can laugh it off like, oh, haha, that's just Meltzer not knowing what the hell he's talking about again. But the shit that he says influences fans. Like, if there are people that just blindly listen to his shit and he says dumb shit about Lucha Underground that prove that he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about, they take that to heart and they're like, oh, wow, Lucha Underground's like TNA. They don't pay their workers are unhappy. They've got a shitty schedule. And it's just all garbage coming out of Meltzer's mouth because he's misinformed, because Conan, who's bitter that Lucha Underground let him go, is Meltzer's only informant on the company. So apologies for the rant, but I really do feel like there's a major issue with Lucha Underground being viewed as a wrestling promotion when it is not. It is a television show about a wrestling promotion.
Right. And I know I am glad you took the time to say that, because I feel like when you have any kind of a sizable platform, like even we here at TWitWoW, like we never like to be misinformed. Hell, we'll do freaking English commentary, like actually call moves. We get a move incorrect, we'll call each other out on it. I think it's an ethical responsibility when you have the platform that Meltzer does.
I know, right? Like, how many times in a live reaction or an English commentary do I ask you, hey, John, what's the name of that pinning combination?
Right, or I'll call something, and you'll be like, no, it was this. And like, Meltzer has a far more significant audience than we do, and yet he spouts this crap with no consequences. Hell, you even told me one instance, and thank God I've never really listened to the prick, save for maybe one isolated clip or another.
Well, and that's the thing. I used to listen to him. There was a point that I mean, granted, I wasn't paying him, but I would find like YouTube clips and stuff like that of his shows, and I would listen to him while I did something else. And eventually it got to a point where he just started willy-nilly spoiling Lucha Underground after the tapings were happening without spoiler warnings. And I was just like, no, like, screw this guy. And I had to stop listening to him because I kept getting like, he spoiled Sexy Star winning Aztec Warfare before I got to see it. It like, and then the Mundo thing too. Like, all of that got spoiled before I got to see it.
Yeah,
because of Meltzer.
And that's what I fucking hate. Like, I fucking hate Lucha Underground spoilers. That's why I really want this to be the season 4, where I'm just spoiler free. Because then we got that random commenter that who probably came from Meltzer for all we know. It's like, oh, hey, how do you feel about this? Oh, you mean the reign that I'm still seeing fucking play out? You freaking dick. And then he never commented on another video after that. So it's like, oh, I'm just gonna shit in this punch bowl and then never come back. But yeah, I think when you've got the kind of platform that Meltzer does, and hey, it's not just wrestling. It could be politics. It could be any arena of human life. If you've got a platform where people listen, which is why I'm glad to see more people being critical of a guy like Alex Jones, right? Because you've got such a massive audience that when you peddle crap, they're going to consume it, and then they're going to perpetuate it in kind. Because the people that Meltzer says, like, oh, all this stuff, you know where those people go? The wrestling subreddit, or this forum or that forum, and they peddle the same stuff. So, what these people say with their audience matters. I mean, hell, again, we don't even really have an audience near the size of Meltzer, but it's big enough where we feel the responsibility to, always be truthful and accurate, even, again, just calling maneuvers. So, yeah, I just wish more people shared that sentiment. But regardless of what Meltzer or any other fucktard like Cornette or any of them would think to say, this was a phenomenal main event. Mills seals Puma away in the coffin. And one other thing I'd like to say about this match that I appreciated was just how seemingly turned on Vampiro was getting watching this. Like,
I know, dude. Like, Matt Stryker pointed out, like, oh, your voice even sounds kind of seductive.
Don't you see, Matthew? This isn't the same Puma. He's been walking on the dark side. Like, he just seemed to be getting something. I'm like, what?
Dude, that was another thing too. He said about Puma. He was like, here's the thing about Puma. He turned, and then there was long pause as if to say, no, like, he's literally turned in the wrestling sense, like he turned heel. And then he said, over a new leaf. And I was like, oh, Vampiro, you cheeky bugger.
Yeah, that was great. I really love Vampiro's commentary here. I think it was definitely an added element. Speaking of commentary, I do love how in episode 9, before Dario's dial to him, Dario just completely cuts Matt Stryker off. He's like, you talked enough, it's Dario's time. And I'm like, yeah. So yeah. Great main event. Again, as we said at the outset, not really much you could say, which is why we padded it out, kicking Dave Meltzer's ass because he needs to get the shit kicked out of him. And yeah, I've got nothing else to say, so unless you do, brother, we can go home after 38 minutes here. These reviews are so quick. But yeah, I'm good, man. I got nothing else to say for this.
You know why they're so quick, though? Because it's only 2 episodes at a time, and they're episodes that we've already watched.
Yeah.
I mean, our last episode was a little longer. It was just under 50 minutes, but the one before that was under 40. The one before that was a little over 40. The one before that was longer, but it was also the intro episode where we were kind of telling everybody what the deal was going to be and all that stuff. But then, like, if you go back to Lucha Rewatch Season 2, our videos, I believe, were similar in length. Yeah. Like the first one was a little over an hour, but we had one that was under an hour. Actually, now that I'm looking, there was only one under 50 minutes from Season 2. So apparently we're just quicker this season. I don't know. Maybe it's because it's in our minds. Because if you remember, Season 2 rewatch we did during the Season 3 break. So we had more of a disconnect from Season 2 until we did the Season 2 rewatch. So maybe this is all just fresher in our minds, and that's why we're going so much quicker.
Yeah, there you go. So, yeah, partner, I'm going to hand it over to you to take us home.
All right, guys. Hopefully you all enjoyed this episode of Lucha Rewatch Season 3. Obviously, we've got another, 15 of these to do since we're going to be doing all 40 episodes of Lucha Underground Season 3, covering 2 episodes a week. Next week, we will be covering episodes 11, which is Aztec Warfare 3. And episode 12, which is titled Every Woman is Sexy, Every Woman is a Star. And John, I know you know what that episode is. Yeah, I don't think we have anything else in between now and next Wednesday. So that's how light of a schedule we've got going on right now. However, we might be starting Progress live reactions the following Tuesday. Hopefully, our Patreon is over 120, which was the goal. Hopefully, everything goes through and gets processed properly, and it actually ends up being the over 120. Because we've had examples before where Patreon said, "Oh, you're at, this amount of money," and then some donations got declined and didn't go through, and whatever. If that doesn't happen, we will be starting to live react to Progress on Tuesday, December 5th. So you have that to look forward to. And next week, we also have Q&A next Thursday. So between now and next Wednesday, nothing that I can think of. But next Wednesday, we've got Lucha Rewatch Season 3, Episode 6. And then Thursday is Q&A. Am I forgetting anything, brother?
No, I think you got everything, man.
All right, everybody, remember to like the video. If you haven't already, leave a comment on what you thought of these 2 episodes in the comments once this video is fully processed. Subscribe to the channel. And of course, remember, once you do subscribe, to click the little bell icon so you can get notified every time we go live or upload a video. And I can actually say upload a video these days because I just recently uploaded John's amazing markout to Andrade Cien Almas winning the NXT Championship as a separate clip, separate from the live reactions that we did the initial reaction in. So that should be a lot of fun. Yeah, and hey, we have all kinds of playlists down in the description. Playlists for all 3 seasons of Lucha Rewatch, including the current one that we're doing right now, as well as our other 2 season 3 playlists, one for live reactions, one for reviews. And of course, I mentioned Patreon earlier. We did reach our community goal, but again, you can never be too safe because, like I said, we've had examples in the past where donations did not get processed properly, and we wouldn't have been able to do a certain, community goal thing if that was the case. And if that happens again this month, unfortunately, we won't be able to do Progress live reactions. So if you're interested in supporting us or really reassuring that those Progress live reactions happen, donate to the Patreon. If you want to get into the Discord, it's only $3 a month. And of course, if you would like TWitWoW related merchandise, you can buy that at our Teespring. Remember to follow us both on Twitter, like the Facebook, check out the subreddit, and we will see you guys next Wednesday for episode 6 of Lucha Rewatch Season 3. Stay tuned.